Welcome to the student seminar presentation by the 6th semester students of the Department of English Honours. We have the presentation divided in 2 days. In the first day today, that is on 28th of June 2021, we are going to have 11 students who will present their papers, and tomorrow on 29th of June on the same time, at same time, that means at 10:30, we have the remaining 11 students who will present their papers. So the students have already been informed about the rules that they have to abide by. That means they will have 5 minutes for presenting their papers, and the participants can have their queries at the end of the presentation of all the students. So we would ask all the students who are participating in the seminar to have their questions ready. At the end of the seminar, they can ask their questions to the presenters. Now I would like to call up the first student who will present her paper. Her name is Anushree Mondol. So Anushree Mondol, please turn on your camera and microphone and present your paper. And all the students are also asked to give a brief introduction about him or her, and also mention the title of the paper which he or she is going to present. So Anushree Mondol will be presenting her paper first. Anushree, can you hear me?
Anushree, turn on your microphone. Unmute yourself first. Yes, okay.
শুনতে পাচ্ছেন স্যার?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Good morning, sir, and my all friends. My name is Anushree Mondol. I am starting BA English Honours 6th semester. My presentation is Jibanananda Das's Poetic Sensibility. I am trying to summarize my topic. His poetry has the power to transport one to the obscure region of one's being and sensibility, beyond the everyday bound of sense and reason. He achieves it characteristically by endowing mystically attributes to mundane everyday object of nature, especially the ordinary objects that we see in and around Bengal, as Bengal was known then in its undivided entity. The poet says, "I shall return to this Bengal." To Bengal he wants to return, a place which has given him utmost fulfillment during his lifetime, given him and in death too he desired the same place. No one really knows what happens after death, yet the desire that the poets express is eternal. It is the profound love for the nature of Bengal that urge him to wish his rebirth if there is any occasion, in any shape or form, in any animal or bird, or however negligible they may be. He wished to be born only in Bengal. The most important characteristic of Jibanananda Das's poetry is that he can transform a common thing to a unique one by his power of verification, by his power of image creation with these things. This rootedness of his imagination and sensibility is what makes Jibanananda Das's a unique poet, different from all the modern poets of Bengal. That's all. Thank you, sir. Submitted by Anushree Mondol.
Anushree's presentation was very brief. Thank you, Anushree. You had 5 minutes and you could have presented sometime more. So after Anushree, the next student who is going to present his paper is Bapun Dotto. So Bapun Dotto, turn on your microphone and camera and present your paper. Bapun, you can turn your video 90 degree.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because just turn the phone or the device 90 degree. Yes, okay, that's fine.
Okay, sir.
Hi, yes.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. My topic is conflict between love and duty in Obhigyanam Shakuntalam. So, I am giving my presentation. Obhigyanam Shakuntalam is a famous Sanskrit play by Kalidasa, a renowned classical Sanskrit writer, widely recognized as the greatest poet and dramatist in the Sanskrit language. His plays and poems are mainly based on the Hindu Purans and Hindu philosophy. He lived during the Gupta period in ancient India. Obhigyanam Shakuntalam dramatizes the story of Shakuntala told in the ancient Indian epic Mahabharata. It is considered to be the best of Kalidasa's works. Its date is not known, but Kalidasa is often placed in the period between the 1st century BC and the 4th century AD. The Sanskrit title means recognition of Shakuntala. The play is set in 7 acts. Obhigyanam Shakuntalam is a story of King Dushanta, who while on a hunting trip meets and falls in love with Shakuntala and the adopted daughter of sage Kanna and marries her. A misfortune occurs when the king is summoned back to court. Shakuntala, pregnant with their child, inadvertently offends the visiting sage Durvasa and receives a curse, by which Dushanta will forget her completely until he sees the royal signet ring he has left with her. On her trip to Dushanta's court in an advanced state of pregnancy, she loses the ring and return unrecognized. The ring is found by fisherman who recognizes the royal seal and returns it to Dushanta, who regains his memory of Shakuntala and sets out to find her. After more struggles, they are finally reunited. The objective of this research paper is an attempt to expose the conflict between love and duty. Not only the Shakuntala but all of Kalidasa's plays focuses on the critical tension between love and duty. That is aesthetically manifest in the relation of the erotic sentiment to the heroine. Throughout Shakuntala, duty and love are closely intertwined. This connection is keeping with the importance of dharma in Hindu practice. At the time, dharma along with artha and kama was understood to be one of the primary goals of human existence. While the ultimate goal of that existence, in the play, there is particular tension between dharma and kama. In the case of both Dushanta and Shakuntala, duty and love collide head to head. Dushanta is pulled between his royal responsibilities, visible his love of hunting and his eventual return to the kingdom, and his husband's responsibilities to receive Shakuntala and expect her son as his heir. Shakuntala finds herself in the middle of her ascetic responsibilities to receive guests, for example, and her widely wants to leave home and pursue Dushanta. Just as Dushanta is a symbol of both royalty and passion, so Shakuntala is a symbol of both asceticism and passion. As the sage curse makes known, a negative consequence can come of subjecting one's passion to one's another responsibilities. On the other hand, the ring of recollection points towards a possible integration of both love and duty. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Bapun. Well, thank you for your presentation. It was a nice presentation. And after Bapun, the next student who is going to present is Bijon Murmu. Bijon has already turned on his camera, so Bijon, you can present your paper.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good morning, sir, and everybody. I am Bijan Murmu, student of 6th semester of English department in Santal Vidro Sahajo Chotowarski Mahavidyalaya. My seminar presentation is on the theme of partition in Toba Singh. So here I am presenting. Abstract. The research paper written on the theme of Indian partition of 1947 on Sadathar Manto's Toba Singh attempts to explore the quest for universal moral values. In doing so, the writer presents a character named Bishan Singh, who is revolutionary in nature. His attempt to break the religious and cultural boundaries is praiseworthy, as he is ready to die in the border. It is no man's land, right, raising the voice of true universal moral values. In fact, millions died during partition violence. In such critical condition, the character neither supports India nor Pakistan. He dies on the land in between India and Pakistan, and this indicates that he is opposing partition and intends to live in harmony. Keywords: literature, Indian partition, revolutionary, no man's land. Toba Singh, first published in 1953 in an Urdu magazine, Savera, was written at a time when Manto's energies were at their lowest ebb. He had migrated to Pakistan in 1948. Since then, he had been leading an agonized existence, constantly plagued by memories of the past. Manto could never bring himself to feel that he really belonged to Pakistan. Consequently, for umpteen reasons, he became an alcoholic to such extent that he almost got himself admitted to mental asylum. Partition of this subcontinent into two separate geographical entities was that calamitous event in its history that changed not only its physical boundaries forever but also altered the lives of its people in an irrevocable manner. The horror, the madness, the bestiality, the violence and rape that followed in the wake of the political decision was unprecedented. Suddenly, overnight, all these secure walls of shared tradition, shared culture, shared history came crumbling down. Neighbors who till yesterday would have died for each other now thirsted for one another's blood simply because they belonged to different communities. It was ironical that the people of the same country who had set an example of winning a struggle in a non-violent manner following the ideals of Gandhi and thrown off the yoke of British subjugation would now turn against each other. For writers who wrote around that time, it became almost an inward compulsion to write about the partition of the country. There was an obsessive preoccupation with violence, as there had been sufferers, eyewitnesses and tragic participants in the horrendous events. The stories written immediately after the partition could not even offer any historical explanation nor see any political necessity for the suffering. The writers tried to grapple with the fractured psyches with the basic question why. Manto's Toba Singh deals with the theme of partition, concentrating on the tragedy of dislocation and exile. The madman Bishan Singh, who hails from a small village in Punjab, Toba Singh, is unable to take in the fact that the division of the subcontinent requires him to cross the borderline and forget his homeland forever. What emerges from this story is the realization that geographical divisions are possible, but how can one divide a shared history, a shared memory and a shared consciousness? Thus, the policymakers would never anticipate the great human tragedy that followed in the wake of their political decision. Manto's Toba Singh is a triumph of ambivalence as it proclaims in-betweenness of the protagonist. The story shows the partition was primarily a lived reality which became a metaphor for human depravity. The story is short, but it talks a lot about partition violence of India and Pakistan in 1947. Manto suggests us to fight for humanity and morality, forgetting national boundary, culture and region. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I'm done. Sir.
Thank you, Vijayan, for your presentation. It's good and welcome. The next presenter is Brototi Banerjee. Brototi, turn on your camera and video mode and begin.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, my all friends and my all brothers and sisters. My name is Brototi Banerjee, 6th semester student of English department. My presentation topic is conflict between love and duty in Abhigyanam Shakuntalam. Throughout Shakuntala, duty and love are closely intertwined. This connection is in keeping with the importance of dharma in Hindu practice at the time. Dharma, along with artha and karma, was understood to be one of the primary goals of human existence, while the ultimate goal of that existence was to attain moksha or liberation from worldly existence. In the play, there is particular tension between dharma and kama. The structure of the play from opposition between duty and love during Shakuntala's poetry to failed effort or harmonize them in the middle of the play to reconciliation between them in the final act suggests that reconciling the competing goals of human existence is a lifelong journey, but that when the struggle is faithfully undertaken, it eventually proceeds towards spiritual liberation, finally liberation. Early in the play, love and duty are seen as being at odds with each other, and duty is even used as an excuse to pursue love. For example, when Duswanto first sees Shakuntala, the king sees something in about Shakuntala direction devotion to religious duty of this duty so him Shakuntala's desirable physical beauty seems wasted in her life of ascetic striving. Meanwhile, Shakuntala's past experience of passion seems to her to be incompatible with her lifelong religious piety. As soon as Duswanto reveals himself in the ascetic grove, Shakuntala thinks, but how can it have happened that simply at the sight of this man, I am stricken with a passion to at odds with the religious life. Rather transparently, Duswanto then uses his sacred royal duties as a cover for romantic desire. The romantic desire, he tells Shakuntala and her friends, I have been appointed as minister for religious welfare, and in that capacity, I have come to this sacred forest to ensure your rituals are not obstructed in any way. Duswanto here is not actually connecting duty and love, rather he is using duty as a lie to pursue love. All this point as described in the stage direction Shakuntala displays all the embarrassment of erotic attraction. She apparently sees though Duswanto rules, and at any rate she is aware that her own religious devotion is more likely to be obstructed, not helped by her attraction to this man. Before leaving the grove, Duswanto to himself, suddenly the city does not so attractive. The truth is, I can't get Shakuntala out of my head or out of my mind. Duswanto to him, going against the given erotic desire, how feels duty and desire don't go together. In the middle act of play, struggle to harmonize love and duty. In Act 2, Duswanto is asked to protect this ashram for a few nights in the sage Kanva's absence, but no sooner as he agreed to this than a messenger arrives with a competing obligation, a request from his mother to participate in a ritual fast in the capital. I have to weigh my duty to the ascetics against the request of a rebel parent, and neither can be ignored. He finally decides in favor of staying close to Shakuntala in the ashram, though he knows duty will eventually tear him away. In Act 3, Priyambada's son Bhatpali brings life and duty together by casting Shakuntala's love sickness in terms of the king's duty. They say it is the king's duty to relieve the pain of those who live in this realm. So if you would have saved life, you must take her under your protection. Duswanto acts on his advice to contract a secret marriage with Shakuntala, trying to hastily circumvent any conflicts between his royal duties and his bride's religious one. In Act 4, Onuswa orders that once the king returns to his capital, who can say whether he remembers what these all things are happened. And in the whether is in the forest, while Onuswa means that Dushanto passion might fade under the presence of royal duty, the audience knows that Dushanto will literally forget Shakuntala because of a task. But even this literal forgetting can be seen by extension to symbolize the subordination of desire to duty. In the play's final act, love and duty finally achieve harmony as Dushanto prepares to return to his capital. The worldly realm of duty with his wife and son Marika blesses them, and she let time and resistance pass in mutual service, a benefit to both our realms. No longer there is no tension between love and duty. They have been integrated such that Dushanto can fulfill his duties as husband, king, and religious devote without a sense of pain or disharmony. Thank you, sir. Submitted by Dr. Dani.
Okay. Okay, Brototi, for your presentation. And the next candidate or next student who is going to present the paper is Chanchal Borai. Chanchal, be ready and turn on the camera microphone. Okay.
Good morning, sir, and good morning all my sisters and brothers. Myself, Chanchal Borai, and I am a 6th semester student, Department of English, and today I am going to present the multiple narrators in The Woman in White. The Woman in White is one of the earliest works of detective fictions with a narrative form from multiple characters. The technique of multiple narrators made the readers understand and feel the emotions of the character. Being a different narrative style, it was enjoyed by the readers. The plot of the story is easily understandable and does not complicate the readers. In the initial scenes, we get to know about the major characters of the story. There are altogether 8 narrators in works, who are Mr. Hartwright, the lawyer Gilmore, Miss Harkams, Mr. Farley, the woman housekeeper, the female cook, Madame Catrick, and Count Fosco. Miss Harkams' narrating expresses her own characters, being completely contrasted with the other narrators. Harkams' narrating started after the lawyer Gilmore left Lemarriage. Harkams' narrating began from her regret to the past and deep unrest. The short and deep record expressed Harkams' complicated feelings clearly. Although she was extremely worried, she narrated in a restrained tone in the whole account, showing her feeling and mood. On the other side, it was a complete action record between her own side in the part of Harkams' narrative. On one side, all this was closely related to the development of the plot of the story. Harkams' diary keeping, she was both the eyewitness and the narrator of the whole event. Before wedding, Harkam tried to maintain Lorna's rights after she was the most active actor in the story, with the plot of her diary developing about her. On the other side, Harkam's superiority in intelligence and willpower could be seen from the narrative itself. Quantabosco sang high praise for Harkam's narrating. All this unnecessary feeling made her narrating stray out. In contrast, it was the protagonist. Hartwright is an important person in the novel according to the narrator's narrating length and the proposition in the plot of the story. Although the writer Collins' original writing intention was to make the narrators promote the story development and to display the narrator's character in the development of the plot. Development of the plot. Each narrator in The Woman in White, not every narrator in the novel played these two diverse functions. Some characters played the roles in the plot, but they were unbelievable or lacked individuality, as for instance, although Harkam's narrative accounting showed her individual characters marvelously and vividly, she was not the narrator throughout the whole plot, only to narrate the story she had experienced, without charging and governing the narrative functions of the whole story. Ingenious plots, like all the other detective novels, all plots linked closely, rationally precise, but also to seek the psychological depth and the three-dimensional characters and multi-dimensional. Thus, the writer of the novel was the inner fluctuations or making the novel no novelty, probably owing to their letting out the truth. The narrators told the story one by one in turns in The Woman in Fight, which was novel in the form, but the narrative advantage was not expressed completely in altering the narrative perspective. The narrative effect was completely various in the same story which was told by the other different. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Chanchal, for your nice presentation. The next presenter is Hemol Mandi. Hemol, start your presentation. Okay.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Hemal Mandi, and I am the student of 6th semester BA English Honors. So my presentation topic is blend of reality and fiction in the free radio, which wrote by Salman Rushdie. One of the story main themes is the relationship between reality and fiction. Raman easily believes in fantasies about being a film star or receiving a free radio from the government for undergoing a vasectomy. To boundary between fiction and reality becomes blurred when Raman starts pretending to already have the radio. Even the community help participate in these dreams. Further, the narrator says the experts question and narrators of the fiction and reality, almost blurring the distinction between the two. They also point to the dangers of deletions. Ramani act of imaginary radio can be read as a comment on the dangers of propaganda. The free radio rejected on the ability to think clearly and self deception. The failure in the Indian system is demonstrated in Ramani, where he adjusts his way of thinking so much that he deceives himself for almost a year. Ramani is happy during that year, and the rare quality of total belief in his dreams allowed him to live a happy life. In the end, this belief in his dreams are contribute to his decision to leave the city. He wants to follow his true dreams when he leaves the city about being a Hollywood star. This almost dreams about being a Hollywood star can be compressed in the word fantasy about the free radio. Ramani has the inability that he can embrace reality and deal with failures. Thank you, sir. That's all.
Okay. Sometimes you are inaudible, I think due to some network problem, but it's good. The next candidate is Krishna Das, who is going to present her paper now. Krishna Das, proceed. Okay. Unmute yourself. Okay.
Good morning, sir, and to my all friends and also, good morning, sirs, and all friends and brother and sisters. My presentation about the understanding of Jivananda Das's poetic sensibility. I am trying to summarize my topic. As the sculpture of Michelangelo occupied the place in the sphere of art, or the painting of Leonardo da Vinci in the world of art, so the place of the poetry of Jivananda Das in the universe of Bengal literature, especially his two poems Bonalata Sen, I Shall Return to This Bengal. These poems are unequivocally two of the most eternal, most read and most resisted poems of Bengal literature. Jivananda Das, a unique poet different from almost all the modern poets of Bengal, In this poem, the poet says that I shall return to this Bengal, and he also says that he wants to return a place which has given him utmost fulfillment during his lifetime and death too. He desires the same place. No one really knows what happens after death. Yet the desires that the poet expresses is eternal, but to Bengal he will return as Moina or a fishing kite or a down crow, or maybe as a duck, some common plants and even some small rivers like Dhansiri, Jalangi, Rupsa. Jivananda's perception of life is that in making the ordinary extraordinary, in making the animals of the lower kinds of fowl, mouse, crow, duck, shalik and so on, desirable and capable of bringing out the poetic inspiration on him. His poetic self finds itself fulfilled is discovering this irresistible pulsating of life and beauty in nature, in the nature of it, as he says in I shall return to this one. Submitted by Krishnadas. Thank you, sir.
You are so brief. You have enough time to express your views, but you have not used your time. So okay. Now it's turn for Maloy Datta. Maloy, begin now. Yeah.
Good morning, sir, and my classmate or brothers and sisters. My presentation is conflict between love and duty in Abhigyana Shakuntalam. The great Kalidas, the father of the Sanskrit languages, wrote Abhigyanam Shakuntalam. Throughout Shakuntala, duty and love are all closely intertwined. This connection is in keeping with the importance of dharma, duty, in Hindu practice at the time. Dharma, along with artha, material success, and karma or desire, was understood to be one of the primary goals of human existence, while the ultimate goal of that existence was to attain moksha or liberation from worldly existence. In the play, there is a particular tension between dharma and karma. Dharma and kama. The structure of the play from opposition between duty and love during Shakuntala's courtship to failed efforts to harmonize them in the middle of the play. To Shakuntala's courtship to failed efforts to harmonize them in the middle of the play, to reconciliation between them in the final act suggests that reconciling the competing goals of human existence is a lifelong journey, but that when that struggle is faithfully undertaken, it eventually proceeds towards spiritual liberation. Early in the play, love and duty are seen as being at odds with each other, and duty is even used as an excuse to pursue love. For example, when Dushyanta first sees Shakuntala, the king sees something incongruous about Shakuntala's devotion to religious duty. To him, Shakuntala's desirable physical beauty seems wasted in her life of aesthetic starving. Meanwhile, Shakuntala's first experience of passion seems to her to be incompatible with her lifelong religious piety. As soon as Dushyanta reveals himself in the aesthetics group, Shakuntala thinks, but how can it have happened that simply at the sight of this man, I am stricken with a passion so at odds with the religious life. Before leaving the grove, Dushyanta reflects to himself, suddenly the city doesn't seem so attractive. The truth is, I can't get Shakuntala out of my Dushyanta's responsibilities in the capital city no longer appeal to him. Going against the grain of the erotic desire he now feels, duty and desire seemingly don't go together. In Act 3, Priyambada somewhat coolly brings love and duty together by casting Shakuntala's lovesickness in terms of the king's duty. They say it is king's duty to relieve the pain of those who live in the realm. In Act 4, Anusula worries that once the king returns to his capital, who can say whether he will remember what happened in the forest? In Act 6, he hears about the death of a childless merchant and is overcome with grief.
Mama, your 4 minutes is over. Only 1 minute left. Okay, continue. Try to finish with it.
In the play's final act, love and duty finally achieve harmony. Indra's character interrupts Dushanta griefs with a summons to fulfill his kindly duty of demon fighting, and Dushanta is later rewarded for his work with a tour of the heavens in a winged chariot. As Dushanta prepares to return to his capital, the worldly realm of duty with his wife and son, Manika blessed them. Submitted by Moy Datta. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Why are you telling that submitted by? You are presenting. It's okay. You can recognize you. But when you have given these or submitted these in written format, then this is the need for your telling that submitted by, etc. While you are talking or expressing your views before us, then it's not necessary. Okay. So the next presenter is Manoshi Patra. Manoshi, be ready and give your presentation.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all who are present here. I am Manoshi Patra, a student of 6th semester, Department of English of Santal Vidroho Sarda Shatobarshiki Mahavidyalaya. Today I will present the theme of partition in the short story Tobatek Singh, written by Sadat Hasan Monto. Sadat Hasan Monto was among the most famous, provocative, controversial Urdu writer of 20th century. He was best known for his short story, and most of his short story was focused on the theme of partition, verbal economy, communal hatred, and especially uncertain ending. Tobatek Singh is a masterpiece of Monto which tells the story of partition and its emotional and psychological effect on human psyche. It tells the story of how after partition people were forced to leave their ancestral place and divided in the name of religion. It is a great political satire in which the author criticizes the whole political system that is responsible for the division of the people. Monto's Tobatek Singh also focused on the fear of lost identities at the time of forced morbidity. When the news of partition reached in the asylum, the inmates reacted differently. Most of them did not understand what is Pakistan and where is Hindustan in earth. They did not want to leave their ancestral home. Some says that yet they did not know how to speak with their language, and Hindustanis were arrogant, so they did not want to go to India. The story also reflects how partition broke the bond of love and warmth and disrupted their profession also. A Hindu lawyer who is in love with a girl from Amritsar also became mad and
became mad and feels a sense of grief when he came to know that Amritsar became a part of India. But later, when he knew that he should go to India, he did not happy because he did not want to leave his ancestral home. And he says that his practice would not be flourished in Amritsar. The central character, Bishan Singh, is a Sikh lunatic and his feet were swollen from too much standing because he never sat or slept for 15 years. He is very much concerned about his homeland. And so when his friend Fazaldin came to meet him, he asked only one question: where is Tobatek Singh? Where is Tobatek Singh? And he asks also, it is in Pakistan or in India. Tobatek Singh highlights the tragedy of dislocation. The lunatics are very innocently protest against the partition. A Sikh lunatic climbed up a tree and says that I want live neither in Hindustan nor in Pakistan. I had rather live on this tree. Some lunatics did not want to get down from the lorry. Some ran nakedly and shouted. In this day of transfer, when the central character Bishan Singh get the answer that Tobatek Singh is now in Pakistan, he refused to leave and says that he was live in his homeland.
1 minute left for you.
In Tobatek Singh, Monto portrays a disturbing picture of partition and its effect on inmates of a lunatic asylum. Real madness is not in mental asylum but in society which has turned blind of communal hatred. Bishan Singh's refusal to move India or Pakistan thus becomes a satirical portrayal of how madness can pitch against the real madness called communalism and nationalistic fervor springing from religious bigotry. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. The next presenter is Papia Sarkar. Papia, proceed. Papia Sarkar.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, everyone. My name is Papia Sarkar, student of 6th semester, Department of English. My topic is multiple narratives in the Women in White. The Women in White novel by Winky Collins published yearly in all the year round November 1859 to July 1860 and in book form in 1860. Noted for its suspenseful plot and unique characterization, the successful novel brought Collins great fame. He adapted it into a play in 1871. There are altogether 8 narrators in the work who are Mr. Hartwright, the Laura Gilmore, Miss Harcombe, and Mr. Shelley, the woman housekeeper, the female cook, Madame Catherine, and Count Fosco. Among the narrators, Miss Harcombe's narrating expressed her own character, being completely contrasted with the other narrators and the woman appearing in the story. Harcombe's narrating started after the Laura Gilmore left Limerick Manor. Gilmore was Shelley's family lawyer in charge of making a document with the force of law for Lawrence distribution of poetry. For example, how could he make a document with the force of law for Lawrence interest before and after her marriage? If she died, what sorts of people could have the right to inherit her property before and after her marriage? And things like that, like Hartwright Gilmore was also the 2 young ladies, loyal friends and the doctor devoting devoting to safeguard their rights all the time. But after he finished his lawyer duties, he left the manor for good. Harpon's narrative began from her retreat to the past and deep unrest to the prospect. Mr. Gilmore says goodbye to us this morning. The male protector left us. One after another, the thought and brief recollections are conflicted feelings clearly. She and Lorna almost could not depend on anybody. Lorna was beautiful, but at the same time she was unable and weak. What Harcombe had to face up with was to fight against her opponents who were more powerful and sophisticated than her, to deal with all parties of unfolding events, to play the role of a protector and to comfort and protect her fragile younger sister Lorna. Although she was extremely worried, she narrated in a restrained tone in the whole account. This traumatic tale inspired by an actual criminal case is told through multiple narrators. Frederick Fairley, a wealthy, hypocritic, hired virtual worker, her trick to tutor his beautiful wife and Harry's Laura and her only courageous half-sister Marian Harcombe. Although Harry and Laura fall in love, he honors her late father with that he married her Glyde, a villain who plans to steal her in her chains. Glyde is arrested by Mr. Count Fosco, a cultured, corpulent Italian who becomes the archetype who subdues villains in crime novels. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Papia, for your presentation. Now we move on to the last presenter of day 1, which Priyodip Chabri. Priyodip, begin your presentation. And Priyodip is the last presenter today. Okay, Priyodip.
Good morning, sir, and my all dear friends, brother and sister. Today I am Priyodip Chabri. Today's my presentation is understanding Jivanananda Das poetic sensibility. So, the poetic world of Jivanananda Das is colorful and sensuous, dark and melancholy, and totally different from the geography celebrated in Bengal poetry, both by his predecessors and his contemporaries Spring and the Rains. The two favorite seasons of Bengal poets are conspicuously absent in Jivanananda. He chooses Hemanto, the short-lived interval between Sharad, known for its bright blue sky, green fields, young paddy and solemn rivers, and set a region of tender sunshine and ripe crops. Hemanta is a season of mist and fog and melancholy light and fields with ripe crops almost ready to be generated. Jivanananda Das represents it, so he abandons the kindly and vivacity of the rains and the colorful absence and sorrow and Basanto, so familiar to Bengal readers. He creates an altogether different world with exotic geographical features like the syntax and rhythm. He imagery attempts a state of defamiliarization. He uses his ingenuity to construct an unfamiliar geography out of familiar world. It is dominated by mist and mellow. He rivers at liquid, its trees and mysterious, its leaves grey and yellow. He also privileges the kite, the owl and the vulture, not the quail. His favorite trees are the hazel, akondo and dhandul, which had never found an honorable place in poetry. The animals inhabiting his world and rats, jackals and frogs all evoking a sense of the dark and the sinister. And yet the world is not totally features or airy. It is its charm, tenderness and sensuous beauty. I quote a few stanzas from the poem Mittu Rage, published in 1935. In dense night the roof that shadow falls on the moonlight. Yeah, smell of cricketers in the air, green air, sunset fills in deep desire. The justice descends to the blue anon core. The magic of the world, Jivanananda Das, has been highlighted by his usually fascination with the sense of smell and the transcension of the sense into another. The old owl smell children's beneath skint smoky rice smell, or the sleep skinted by the ducks abound in his poems. But more remarkable is continued traffic between the senses, smell into touch, touch into taste, sight into sound. One of the poems most finally criticized by his exercise in the demonstrating of categories in Ghas, written the simple prose like language with spring use of words. The poem makes complete the colorsense and animate and intimate words and celebrates a primitive darkness where all
Jyoti, try to finish within 1 minute.
Yes, sir. It's begin with the description of the morning light and looks soft and green like tender lemon leaves, and of the deer tearing of grass, fried, fragrant and green like unripe grapefruit. The fixed word of categories with their structure fraction, they slowly submit down and whisk the drink in the skin of glass to strain. Thank you, sir. That's all.
Thank you. We have finished the student seminar presentation of day 1, and congratulations to all, to you all, and well, you have done well, all of you are well, and you know this is a new kind of experience for all of us. Other day you remained as listeners and we were speakers, but today the role reverses, and it's a very nice experience that you know it is a platform for your bigger leap. And yes, this is for your first time, but we are very happy, but personally I am very happy to see that you seemed very confident and courageous. No kind of what you may call, no kind of irritation, etc. I have not observed. So it's a very good sign for all of our students. So okay, now it's the session is open for question and answer, because you know if the seminar, if in a seminar there is no question, then it will be a dull one. It seems like that it's a kind of reading competition. So it's not so. Now I am asking all of you, including our honorable teachers, to ask the question to our presenter. Now the session is open for questions.
Before we take questions, and thank you Shobhan Babu, as Shobhan Babu rightly summed up the presentation by the students, that it was very courageous to see, courageous for the students, and we are also delighted to find all the students present their papers in a very spontaneous manner, without any kind of hesitation or faltering. And it was also good that we did not have any technical issue rather. So the presentation also went off very fine. Now before we take questions from the participants, may I take a couple of minutes to tell the students of the 2nd and the 4th semester about the syllabus of the 6th semester, because these students were presenting papers from their own syllabus, and students of 2nd and 4th semester would find it easy for they would be it would be encouraging for them to find the syllabus from which the papers were presented. So I shall be just presenting for a short while the syllabus of the 6th semester and tell the topics on which these papers were presented. I hope that my screen is visible to the students. Is it?
No sir, not yet.
Okay.
You can't see now.
Okay. If so, I shall be narrating the. Okay, I shall be telling you the syllabus structure. We have two core papers, core 13 and core 14, and two discipline specific elective, DSC 3 and DSC 4. And all these four papers, two core papers, core 13, core 14, and DSC 3, DSC 4, they are of 75 marks. That is the full marks. In core 13, we have Indian classical literature, and from Indian classical literature we have papers on Abhigyana Sakuntalam by Kalidasa. And core 14 paper is...
Sir, I am sharing my screen. Is it visible to you, the syllabus?
Yes, it is visible now.
Okay, okay.
Yes. So so we have papers from Kalidas, says Abhigyana Sakuntalam, from core 13, and then from core 14, which is Indian writing in English, we have a paper paper on Salman Rushdie's The Free Radio. And from the discipline specific elective subjects, DSC 3, which is science fiction and detective literature. There is an alternative to this subject also, which is literature and cinema, but we teach the option science fiction and detective literature, and from this discipline specific elective paper we have papers on Wilkie Collins, The Woman in White, and from DSC 4, that is partition literature. That is also another alternative, I think, in partition literature, but in DSC 4. But we teach partition literature, and from partition literature we have papers from two texts. One text is Sadat Hasan Monto's Toba Teksin, and the other is Jivanananda Das's I Shall Return to This Bengal. So we have papers on 5 topics, and we have given some topics. The topics were selected by the 4 teachers of our department. We also have Kautuk Babu with us, and so as Shobhan Babu said, we would now open the forum for any question.
Yes, sir.
On the topics.
Sir, the good sign is that the students has covered the whole syllabus. That is, the 4 paper has been captured by them. Though there is some repetitions because of the number of the topics, but we have seen that paper 13, paper 14, DSC 3 and 4, all of the papers have been covered by the presenter. So it's a very good sign. So now what we have said that it's now time for questions and answer session. So we are asking questions from you. Okay. If there is any query. Am I audible to you? Yes?
Yes, you are.
Yes, anyone have any question to any presenter? Sir have already informed you before the beginning of the seminar that you have to write down your question to the respective presenter. So if you have no query, then it would not be a good one. Now I am asking a question because without the question, I have already told you that the seminar will be a dull one. So my question is to Anushree, the first presenter of day 1. Anushree, have you seen the same kind of sensibility in any of English poet that you have read? of that Jivanananda Das's sensibility we are talking about. Yes, we are listening you.
Rabindranath Tagore.
Yes, Rabindranath Tagore. I have asked you about English poet. Yes, in Rabindranath there is that same kind of sensibility in English poet. I am asking you because you have read it. So please remember. Okay. So you have read Tinkan Abbey by William Wordsworth. In the poet Tinkan Abbey, same kind of thing. Going because Onsi is yes, is it echoing now? I think no. So you have read Tinkan Abbey by William Wordsworth. In Tinkan Abbey, the same kind of poetic sensibility like Jivanananda Das's is there, return to nature. So you know, lap of nature, he's a nature poet. Sir, if you have any question to anyone, then you can ask. The students are so meek and they are supporting each other, that's why perhaps they would not ask any question. So it's not embarrassing, you know, it is not embarrassing to you. We would not like to make you embarrassed, but you have to answer, you have tried to answer rather. It might be wrong, but you must try. Okay, that's how we are asking.
I would not have any specific question to any student, but I would like to know, as some of the students have presented their papers from partition literature, and apart from the because we stay in West Bengal, and we know that in Bengali literature as well as in the western part of country, that means Punjab has suffered a lot from partition. So you would find that partition literature is very prominent in the eastern part of the country as well as in the western part of the country. In Hindi and English writings we have many other texts. So apart from the syllabus, the text that we have, if anyone has read other texts, it may be in Bengali also, then you can also share us what you have or what is your views on such text apart from the text that we have in our syllabus. Have you read anything else? And also remember that there are also some films that have been prescribed, though they are not directly part of your syllabus, but try to see these films that will help you to understand the plight, the suffering, the miseries that the people who left their country's own country, that means it was at that time an undivided region, but they have to leave their place and belongings and dispossessed by various riots and disturbances and came to another part as refugees. So the plight of the refugees are very prominent in many texts that are part of partition literature. So I'd like to know from the students, not only from 6th semester but also from the other students, your views on the texts that are part of the genre of partition literature, and also the films that have been prescribed for viewing in this syllabus. You should watch these films. These are very poignant films on the partition of a country, and there are 3 films actually. One is M.S. Sathu's Garam Hawa, then we have Samiha Kumar's Khamosh Pani, Silent Waters, and a Bengali film Shubon Rekha. This is part of a trilogy by Ritik Khotro. So do see these films also. So if you have read any other partition literature apart from the text that are part of your syllabus. You can also share your views. So this is
Yes, sir. Actually, partisan literature is also very finely reflected in Khusbanto Singh's Last Train to Pakistan. There is also film adaptation on this text.
Yes, Kautuk Babu has rightly said. So Khusbanto Singh's text is very it is very very much reflect the pain, the suffering of the people, and it has been also made into a film.
And it's considered as a classic in partisan literature.
Yes.
You know, it's a very important book on partisan literature. So, sir specifically asked about the partisan of Eastern Zone. Okay, so if you have read any kind of Bengali text regarding the partisan or Bengal partisan or etc. or in our eastern part, so you can mention. Okay,
Sir, I have read Upai by Manik Bandyopadhyay. That's a partisan literature.
Yeah.
Based on partisan literature.
So apart from our syllabus,
Yes, apart from our syllabus. Okay.
Sir, one movie by Akshay Kumar, Joker, এটা হচ্ছে স্যার আফটার পার্টিশন যেটা বোঝাতে চেয়েছে সেটা আছে, সেই ঘটনাটা আছে যেটা মানে এটা কাল্পনিক একটু পাগলাপুর বলে একটা ইয়ে আছে, গ্রাম আছে যেটাকে পার্টিশনের পরে ওটা কোনো না পাকিস্তান না ইন্ডিয়া হয়ে মাঝখানে রয়ে গেছিল, তারপরে সেখানে একটা অ্যাসাইলাম ছিল এরকম একটা কাহিনীটা, তারপর সেই গ্রামটা কোনো ম্যাপেই পড়েনি দিয়ে সেইটা নিয়ে একটা মুভি আছে অক্ষয় কুমারের জোকার।
And I think it is also part of science fiction. It is isn't it? You are talking of this film that a spaceship would come at last.
Yes, sir.
Now, okay. Now I would like to ask our colleague Kautuk Datta to share his views and his experience of today's seminar, any kind of observation regarding our the presentation of our student. So Kautuk, please.
Exactly. I am too late because of my vaccination program. But at very last, I have already I listened to Manasi and Priyadeep and Papia. These three I have already heard. But their presentation process, exactly their confidence and their courage, it is very much encouraging for the other students. And particularly, I will say, though it is for their first time presentation, but my suggestion, my advice for them is that to raise some question from their texts, to raise some question and to answer. In that way, if they want to present their topic, then this will be much effective. As they are the first generation for these types of expression, for these types of presentation, so I think they will develop and they will follow how to present better. But what they have done, it is very much encouraging for the others also. Okay. And also Sombhavu, in which he is now continuing this program and also doing this. It is well done and very much good sign for our department also in this types of program, I think, in our college for the first time. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Kautuk, for your observations and for your encouraging words towards our students. We think that they must get benefited from this. So, okay, now sir has given the attendance link in the chat box, so you will give your attendance. But before this, I would like to request our Honorable HOD, Professor Anurbatan Chakraborty, to summarize the whole process, and also if he has any kind of observation regarding today's seminar presentation, so he must share his views. Sir, it's up to you.
Thank you, Shobhan Babu, and thank you, Kautuk Babu. Kautuk Babu has rightly pointed out the important aspect that while presenting a paper, the students should also try to focus on some issues, raise certain questions and then address these questions. But as this is their first presentation, we have the presentation we had student presentations about 2 years back when the college was open. So we will consider that this is a commendable effort by the students, and because this is the first time that they are perhaps presenting papers in an online mode, and this also gives an opportunity for the other students who are present here as participants, not as presenters. We have remaining 11 students will present their papers tomorrow, and this would also help the students of the 4th semester and the 2nd semester to have an experience how to present papers, and we look forward to have other papers. We believe that it will also be very delightful to be present as teachers and also as viewers to witness our dear students' presentation of papers on various topics. So I would not suggest anything more, but tomorrow hopefully we would have another delightful session, and our teachers of our department, we shall be with you. We shall encourage you, and as in a very courageous manner, in a delightful way, the students presented their paper. We hope that tomorrow's session will also be as delightful, as encouraging as this session has been. So I have given you the link for the attendance, and I have actually given an option for all the students to select while giving the attendance. So this is a link for attendance for all the 3 semesters. You have to select the option whether you are from the 2nd semester or 4th or the 6th semester. So finally we have to stay for a while because we need some time for the students to give their attendance. I would also request Kautuk Babu or Shobhan Babu if they have any concluding remarks regarding to this seminar, then we may call it a day. So if Kautuk Babu and Shobhan Babu have already given their advices and solutions.
Okay, sir, you can already make a day, you can declare.
Okay, sir, I have a note or observation that try to utilize the whole time or the given time that has been assigned to you, that is 5 minutes. So don't finish within 2 or 3 minutes. It's not a good sign. So try to utilize the assigned time, that is 5 minutes. Okay. Some of you have finished before timing within 2.5 and somebody within 3 minutes. So it's not the right way to present the paper. So as if you are in a very hurry. So don't do this.
Yeah, as I advised, you can follow the mode of practice that you read out your paper before your presentation. You should read out the paper and have a look at the clock also, the time you take while reading a paper or reading for 5 minutes. It would help you. So when you are asked to present a paper for a particular time, you should try to cover that entire time. So ending somehow 50% before the time is complete is not very commendable. So follow that advice which I just gave you. Read your paper and measure the time that you take to read it, and then attend the seminar or the presentation, and then you present your paper. So if everyone has given your attendance, then we may call it a day. And another thing that I am going to tell you, that some of the students, very few students, they also joined this session very late. Even towards the end of the session, 1 or 2 students has joined. So we urge you to join the seminar tomorrow at 10:25, then we may start the seminar at 10:30 tomorrow. So have a very good day, and I am thankful to my colleagues Shobhan Babu and Kautuk Babu. Kautuk Babu, in spite of his vaccination program, he has joined this webinar. So I am also thankful to you. And also I congratulate all the students who have successfully presented their papers, and the students, remaining students of the 6th semester who would present their paper tomorrow, and the other students, that means students of 4th and 2nd semester. They have also been very patient as listeners in this program. So hopefully tomorrow we will have a similar kind of session. So till then, take care, bye, and have a good day.
Have a good day. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And
Thank you, sir.